So the Bleach 1000-year blood war has started, and again I must say it was pretty amazing. Now if you want a breakdown of the episode and some facts, watch my previous Bleach video. Leave a like and a comment when you do. But for this particular video, I'll be going into the manga breakdown and comparison since I've noticed a lot of deviations from the original. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Just so you know, this brand new episode of Bleach is not only the introduction of the prominent characters, but it is the start of the blood warfare. As thus, this episode ran for roughly about 24 minutes and covered manga chapters 480 to 484, which contains about 100 pages, some of which are blank with tiny drawings on them, while they all cumulatively had about 421 panels. Now, we will be mostly looking at the deviations from the manga and some skipped content. As such, we won't be diving into anything else than the chapters that were introduced. But all the same, spoiler warning. So right away, we start off with some anime exclusive content, with the prophecy of the Quincy talking about the king who regains his pulse after 900 years, his mind after 90 years, his strength after 9 years, and the final year isn't set. For those with keen eyes, this all adds up to about 999 without the final year. This particular speech prophecy isn't heard early in the manga. In fact, the only time I can remember it for myself is a bit further into the invasion, but I won't be going that in depth, so let's move on from it. We now finally get to the start of Bleach chapter 480, the blood warfare. On the start of the chapter, we see 3 panels which the anime mirrors pretty well, except for Mayuri talking to his lieutenant on the elevator. And then it further adds 2 more cuts that weren't seen in the paneling of the manga as well. Now, the only specific panel that was missing was that of Akon speaking. Instead of we seeing him, we can only hear his voice, and this actually ends the scene. In our next manga panels, we see our 2 Shinigami, Shino and Ryunosuke. To learn more about them, you can check out my first video on Bleach. Within this scene, we see a few things that were changed over for the anime. For one, the argument they had took place in the Soul Society, and it was about why they were being sent to the world of the living. This is where they were then accompanied to the world of the living. Then we see a mysterious figure spread some hollow bait. The 2 Shinigami go their separate ways, and this is when they were attacked by hollows and then saved. Within the anime, this scene took place with a runtime of about 5 minutes with a few notable changes. We open up in the world of the living with Ebern spreading some hollow bait first, then our 2 Shinigami arrive. This is where the argument about why they were sent to the world of the living would ensue, and then they would depart each other's company. Notably, some of the gags are removed from this scene, including Ryunosuke's interaction with Afro Samurai. Also, a small side note, within the manga, Afro actually steps into the world of the living before the other 2. But within the anime, we see the other 2 Shinigami stepping in and he doesn't. After Ryunosuke leaves, he finds his way at the top of a bridge and then he is chased. But in the manga, he was actually near a building. Pretty much the same happens when he is being chased. Ichigo and his friends now arrive to save the day. Of course, in the anime, we do get a few extra shots of the world of the living, which to me are done amazingly. It really sets the world up and the atmosphere. The fight between the Hollows and our heroes takes place not only to show off their strengths, but also introduce them as well. But in the manga, much of these scenes didn't happen. Chad wasn't as involved as well as Orihime. Also, Ichigo didn't do his Bankai, which I personally think is overkill. But overall, it was a beautiful scene and the anime did it superbly. Whereas the manga's 13 panels really didn't lend much for expounding. On top of that, a running theme of this episode is the level of gore. It does seem to be way higher than that of the manga, so look out for me mentioning it from time to time. In the manga, we do see Ebern peering around a corner, seemingly watching our fight. But of course, this was removed from the anime because we already established earlier that he was watching the Shinigami. Now, one thing that was missing from the anime is the introduction of Hiyori and Lisa. They were coming from the bathhouse, even though this was relatively one page with only a few panels. But I do believe this scene may be introduced in the next Bleach episode. However, I really don't see it serving a purpose, so slim hopes on that. Beyond that, we skip to 2 days later when Ryunosuke reawakens in Ichigo's room and sees that everyone, including Shino, is fine and unhurt. This is where Ebern, who would have been tracking them, would have appeared to challenge Ichigo. He came right through the window onto Ichigo's bed. My dude, you don't just step on someone's bed with your shoes, that's rude. At the end of Ebern's introduction would be the end of manga chapter 4 481, and when Ichigo kicks him right in the face would be the beginning of chapter 482, which he rightly deserves. I mean, do you think these sheets are easy to be washed? Pretty much this scene is married in the manga, except we skip out on the introduction of Yuzu and Karin, which takes up only about one panel. Another panel that's missing is where Chad and Ishida said to Ichigo that they would join after they're finished eating. However, it was replaced with Ishida's face, worried about the fight to come, or he senses that something is off with this new villain. I bet you're really loving this video. Here's a great way that you can support us. Like, share, and subscribe to get notified of when we post new content. To actually get notified, click on that notification bell. Now back to the video. Onto the scene where Ichigo confronts Ebern, who reveals that he has Quincy gear. Within the manga, they actually travel somewhat away from the area, whereas in the anime, they stick around and fight. In the manga, Ichigo did also make a slight mention to Aizen, but this line is nowhere to be seen in the anime. Then from there, we travel to the Soul Society, where the 11th Division is investigating some disappearances. This pretty much stays true to the manga up to their dialogue. And naturally, the anime takes point in giving us some unique B-roll shots. One notable aspect of this scene is that this guy doesn't have a scar anymore. We then switch to the next scene, but instead of showing Mayuri's reaction once more, the manga goes right into the Captain Commander's offices. Again, this scene stays faithful to the manga, except for this guy laying dead. Much more gore in the anime. His body is positioned in front instead of the back. This scene with the confrontation between Ichigo and the invaders in the Soul Society are interwoven in a 1-2-1-2 beat, but within the manga panels, these fights actually go a little bit longer, as you can see with the illustrations on your screen, of course. The rest of the anime plays pretty much the same as in manga chapter 484 when they return to their hideout, except for the scene where the guy loses an arm. It's a bit more gory, of course. Now, something else notable within this screen is the guy's facial hair is a bit more pronounced. For the anime, we got a lot of unique scenes which were spectacularly animated and highlighted the action in such an amazing way, while at the same time complementing the manga. I think this was a really strong first impression of Bleach for any new viewers of the franchise just coming into the fray, and starting off with the Bleach 1000-Year Blood War. I have high hopes for the series, and I hope it continues on the same level. I hope you really enjoyed the first iteration of the manga comparisons and details that you missed in the first episode of Bleach. If you did, leave me a like, and you can also go ahead, leave me a comment as well. I really do appreciate it, and also any suggestions down in the comments below would be great. We are on our way to make this underrated channel 3,000 subscribers strong, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well, and don't be afraid to turn on notifications. Peace out, V Nation. Stay safe out there.